on to this again, November 25. This is TZ3, and this is our question 1. And we'll move on to question 2 later. We'll just break down this extract completely. And so I've just highlighted the key important information. And so it says it's a magazine, monthly science magazine, right? So we have monthly readers, right? And these readers are 6 to 12 years old. Okay. And let's look at the question. How is the characterization of Rav, who's this lady in the poster, in the magazine, how is she used to promote science to young people? So you have to be focused on the question, so just remember this. Characterization. Now that's very broad, so but definitely make sure you stick to that idea of characterization. And we're looking at promoting science. So we can talk about things that do promote science and things that don't. So we can talk about biases, right? So let's start by looking at this acronym, TCAMPS, right? And our text type, we know that. So this is very important for our introduction. You have a magazine. Okay, our context and our audience. What is our audience? 6 to 12-year-old children, right? Children. And then we have monthly science magazine. That is part of our context, right? We can say monthly readers. Okay. And we know it's designed to promote science, right? Since it's a science magazine, context, oops, sorry about that. Promote science, who, what, where, when, why. This is probably 21st century, right? First century, probably very recent. Let's see if there is any dates. There are no dates, so we won't be able to use that, but we know it's very recent, right? We can just tell. What is it? It's an interview, so our text type can be an interview as well. We can say a magazine with an interview. Interview is part of our context, so we can either include it in our text type or we can include it in our context. You can talk about where. It says British. That's important, right? British magazine, so most likely in the UK. UK. So our readers are in the UK, right? Now this all helps us very quickly write a fantastic introduction, and that seems to be it for our context. Oh, and of course, who is our character? Rav, right? Ravneet Gill. So we can write that in our context. Ravneet, aka Rav. Right? So in the introduction, we should always put the full name. Our author is just Whiz Pop Bang, so that can be in our context. Whiz Pop Bang, right? So all important information to include. And what's our message? Let's do that at the end of our analysis. Our purpose. So our purpose is to promote science, right, to young people, or at least that's what the question is asking us. Promote science, right? So it's to educate, right? To promote, to educate, to inform. Yes, it also informs about one's life, right? This character's life and profession. So to educate, to promote, to inform. Is there any persuasion? There's very little persuasion, right? It's more about just informing. Uh, we could maybe say persuade, you know, children to pursue their dreams and interests, right? That's that's valid. Persuade in terms of interests, right? Pursuing interests. So when we talk about purpose, we want these words, right? To promote, to educate, to inform, to persuade. Uh, and then our message would be more specific about what it's trying to convey. Signposts are three main ideas. First, we have to analyze, right? So let's analyze this. Interview with a science hero. So immediately we know what this is and what is science hero. That's probably some, glamorized term that helps attract these 6 to 12-year-old children, right? It's what we call an epithet, right? Sort of glamorizes, right? Glamorize. She's like a role model, right? Hero, role model. Interview, so we know what is being done. Okay. This is something we could mention in our context. So next, in my job, I get to. So clearly, it's about informing children about, possible jobs and ways science can be used in their future, right? So it's, let's say, heading or title, right? We can talk about the large font. It's a very soft font, right? It's not rigid like it's like Times New Roman, right? Soft. In my job, I get to. Then we have ellipsis, and we sort of lead into this, right? So this is maybe a typical title that we see for these magazines, with a science hero, right? So ellipsis invites engagement, right? Ellipsis. Then we're immediately, so what we always want to be thinking about is what do we see first, right? What is our visual path? And so what we see first is this, then we typically go like this, right? And these arrows are literally guiding our view, right? We have this arrow, we have this arrow. So we can talk about that visual path, right? In my job, I get to use science to bake, and then it takes us to her character, and then we go to her anecdotes with her mother, then her love for science, and how science has helped her, right? So it helps guide the reader, so we can talk about maybe a zigzag visual path with arrows, right? And we're talking about characterization, right? So she's characterized as playful, right? All these colors, pastel colors, right? Pink, blue. We have playful, right? She's always smiling in all of these photos, smiling. She's wearing bright pink. She's, you know, making signs. Her posture, right? She looks very playful in every image. Playful, vibrant smile, right? We can talk about she seems enthusiastic about her job, cooking, right? And it's essentially using her personality as the sort of anchor of for this message and purpose, right? Her personality is the sort of selling point. Personality. That's a great point we can make, right? Selling point. Right. Okay. She has like, vibrant. She has that childlike, sort of youthfulness, right? Okay. Yeah. Again, we can talk about those arrows. We have, it's sort of a scrap book, right? We have these sort of pictures that are pasted in almost, and they've drawn, illustrated this tape, these icons and images. So it's like a scrapbook with, handwritten quotes. So we can talk about that. Scrapbook style, right? Rather than traditional interview. Traditional interview, right? That would be super boring for children. We have Q&As, right? Sorry. Not equals to the Q&A format, right? So most interviews would be in a Q&A format, but this is very sort of digestible, simplistic, and friendly, entertaining, right? More engaging plus entertaining, right? It gives a lot of detail. So adults maybe prefer this Q&A format. It gives the information very quickly, but this is more engaging for children, right? So it's clear that we're talking about using science to do something, right? The job is using science. So immediately already promotes science. And we have bake, we have this exclamation mark in all of these quotes, right? Shows excitement. Again, it characterizes her as enthusiastic, right? And again, remember, everything is very simplistic, right? Instead of saying, because I was untidy or I was disorganized, she says, very messy, right? A lot of children say very messy. So all the language is very simplistic, right? Very simplistic language, no jargon, right? Uh, say no jargon. That's something you can mention, right? No like extreme cooking terms or long words that children won't understand. Then she explains, right? She has again a very conversational, so we can talk about that conversational, friendly tone. We have these cartoons, right? Cartoon, and it's sort of superimposed, right? Almost 3D effect. 3D effect. Superimposed, right? So, and all these terms, like words that we use for to describe, help us get those extra marks, right? It tells the examiner we know how to describe something beyond simple terminology or basic ideas, right? And so that 3D effect makes it pop. And again, that's exciting. It makes it almost like a collage or scrapbook again, so we can bring it back to here. So collage her life plus job, right? Plus love for science. And so she uses these anecdotes, right? At school, at home, my mom, in the kitchen. So lots of anecdotes, right? It's not abstract. Anecdotes to ground, ground experience in reality, or let's say experience and science, right? The idea is science. Oops, apologies. Okay, let's create science in reality. Again, we can talk about these playful icons. Icons, right? We have forks, right? These are all related to her work. Whisker, we have a roller, we have, not sure what that is, but something. So, related to her work. So again, it makes it very fun and engaging. And that this is all, part of her personality, right? It's that image that we're creating of her and this profession. She has a cat, right? Children love animals. They would definitely find this funny, right? And look at the cat's face. Uh, Her nickname, Rav, right? She's introduced as Ronit Gill, baker, TV presenter, and psychologist. So this is all her roles and where she's used science. But then throughout the rest of the text, she's just referred to as Rav. So that is her nickname, right? Shortened, almost shortened, almost like they're friends, right? Reader is her friend, or at least feels like they've become her friend, right? They know so much about her already. So, yeah, I love those. Baking with her mom and dad. That's very personal, right? Personal experiences plus photos, right? We saw that in like this cat picture. And just look at this. We have a lot of diversity, right, in this work. So science is diverse. Maybe that's what it's helping to promote. It's an argument we can make, right? Maybe it's not so clear, but it's a sort of interpretation, which is very important. Then we have I use science to help me every day, right? Every day. I love working. So this is very let's read this. She's talking about how she uses science to understand what happens to sugar under various temperatures. That is quite, let's say, surface level, right? Surface level use or understanding even of what science is, of science. This could be a sort of negative aspect, right, of the text that doesn't help to promote science. And then, yeah, this is more of what we see, but it doesn't seem like she used much of what she learned or did in science for her job. So this could be a negative aspect, right? always loved science. So again, we can talk about progression, right? We go from personal, oops, personal life, and aspirations or job, right? Job, or we talk about just like this anecdote, right? So that's her personal life and job. Then we go into her childhood use of science to help with that job, right? And that links back here. Then we go into uh, how she uses the science, right? Or childhood uh, love of science. And then, oops, use science for work, too, which is not too deep, sort of detracts from the message. This is not related, right? Not related, but it's humorous, right? Humorous anecdotes, right? About dancing. Cooking involves a lot of experimenting, so this is more about science, right? Experimentation. Again, very surface level. Took around 20 attempts, but got it right in the end. Like the scientific method, experimentation, right? Sort of refers to that. And so again, we come back to this, right? We go back to experimenting at work or in her job, let's say. And then it comes, that sort of inspiration, right? Inspire others and give advice, right? She's giving advice here. She's saying, if you want to be a scientist when you grow up, spend time being curious, research, read, play, channel your energy. It's very surface level again. So it doesn't seem like she's the right person for this kind of magazine. Oops. Right, it's the typical be curious, which is not really helpful. But she's sort of inspiring again, to inspire maybe. That could be part of our purpose. So let's say to inspire here. Persuade, to inspire. Right, so you can use any of these to pursue interests. So we can sort of say like she does effectively inspire children to pursue their interests, but the focus on science is sort of lost in her anecdotes and all of this, right? So we can sort of have a balanced sort of argument that looks at positive aspects and negative aspects of her characterization and the poster. Now, what we do see is she makes science look fun, and so she sort of breaks the stereotype that science is sort of hard, technical, and very sort of taxing. And she's a woman, woman. She challenges stereotypes, right? Challenges uh, assumptions. We already talked about stereotypes, so let's say assumptions. As a woman, right? We can call this cliche, right? That's also a technique. Cliche is a technique. Now, this is very feminine biased, right? That's something the mark scheme also mentions. It's very pink. It's very flashy, and she's a woman herself. Maybe it's not sort of inviting to a young boy, right? Young boys tend to like, I don't know, cars, boys, right? Maybe they're not interested in cooking as much. Just typical stereotypes. And so we can mention how maybe not as appealing to boys, right? Appealing to young boys. Very feminine biased. We can call these pull quotes, right? They're sort of made larger, right? Enlarged pull quotes. Sorry. A lot of adjectives, right? We have huge, we have is a huge animal fan. So it's like sort of emphasis. Let's say adjectives. And is that sort of hyperbole, right? That appeals to children, exaggeration, hyperbole, and makes it seem very exciting, no matter what she's talking about. We laugh a lot, right? A lot. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of a lots, right? Involves lots of experimenting. I'm sure there's some more up here. Every day, right? So there's a lot of uh let's say not full on hyperbole, but use of adjectives and adverbs. Every day is an adverb to make science seem like it is a lot of fun, like it is used every day and very important, right? So let's see. Again, huge. Uh, Learned so much. There's so many different signs. After years and years, right? So it's very descriptive and hyperbolic. So let's actually mention that. Did I write this down? Not sure. Let me check. Hyperbolic, like, yeah, hyperbole. A lot of the sentences are short and sort of incomplete clauses, right? And there's a full stop. So never in a million years did I think that would happen. We laugh a lot usually. Yeah. So it's very like uh not formal, right? Informal plus short fragmented short sentences, right? And that just simplifies everything. Simplifies message plus language, right? We already mentioned that there's no jargon, right? And so just, I mean, look at these dotted lines as well, right? That's the sort of thing we see in all of these, let's say segments, right? So it's segmentation or sectioning. Sectioning. This helps us appeal to the reader, right? We have clear sections, these pull quotes or act as like subheadings, right? Where do we write pull quotes? Large pull quotes equal subheadings, right? And this helps with the sectioning, right? And the sectioning helps us improve readability. It guides visual path. And there's only really fun things that are talked about, right? She makes everything seem fun, even the countless hours. She makes it sound fun and not like she's complaining about it, right? No complaints. Makes it sound sort of like an achievement that she finally got it in the end, right? It was all worth it. Worth it. So no matter the struggle, science is worth it. That could be something. Science is worth it, maybe. And we can talk about how her casual voice, to be mentioned that informal nickname shortened plus casual voice, right? Casual tone. Oh yeah, we mentioned that here. Conversational friendly tone. Reader is her friend. Uh it almost creates a sense of familiarity, right? These things are connected, personal experiences. Sense, maybe link it to both. Sense of familiarity, like you know the person, like you know this personality, right? And if we keep talking about how she makes science look fun, maybe it becomes repetitive. But we can talk about her gestures, right? This is gesture. So even if something sounds repetitive, you can always put it into different words, right? Uh, Yet include a new feature. So gestures plus body language, right? Maybe it's sort of exaggerated, selectively chosen, maybe good photos, or maybe she actually hates her job. How do we know? Right? And it almost becomes like a promotional poster for her, right? She's everywhere. It's less about science, more about her. So that could be a negative aspect, less about science, more about her. So it's more of a TV show, as if she was in a TV show, so TV promotion maybe. Almost like she's a celebrity, right? And of course, if we want to describe the colors, we said pastel. Did I mention that? Maybe not. Let's use black still. So again, we can do this here. Pastel, sort of vibrant, festive, bright colors. Right, she in every photo she's wearing something, unique. She seems like an exciting, unique person. She has a different hairstyle in every photo, right? Yeah. So these are just different things we can talk about and make our arguments more persuasive in our essay. Then of course, last thing is the font of this basic text. It's very like handwritten, right? So we can talk about handwritten again, like scrapbook kind of writing. Funky, we can say. Comfort, comforting. Font. Yeah, so that's a lot already. And now we should go into finishing this. What is the message? So the message is science can be fun, right? Or that's the maybe intended message, right? From the question. Science can be fun and accessible and is important for any future career, we can say, right? Even baking, even cooking. And so, the ending probably answers that. So be curious, research, read, and pursue your interests, right? It's important for any future career. So pursue your interests, right? And if you think about it, it's very general what she advised, right? It could be applied to literally any profession, not just science, right? Research, read, and go into things that interest you and bring you joy. So pursue your interests, right? That's sort of a general message. We can talk about how this is the intended message, right? But this is sort of what comes out instead, right? Overall impression. Now, children are very sort of, we can say, gullible or easily molded, right? So if you put science everywhere, science debate, use science, right? Loved science, then they'll be like, okay, so this is what science is. And so this seems very fun. Let me become a scientist. But they have this magazine has explored it very superficially, right? There's not much about what true science is. So maybe it's misguiding. Okay. Now, then we have to talk about our three main ideas, right? To organize our body paragraphs. And this should be a guided analysis, right? So we want to go from top to bottom, usually, or sort of define three separate, maybe sections. So we could say number one creates a personality, an exciting, enthusiastic personality, right? Familiar, familiarity, wait, sorry, enthusiastic personality, familiarity that the reader can buy into, sort of, right? That children can buy into, right? First, you have to create that personality, and then she sort of makes science seem fun and her job seem fun. So then, oops, let's see. We can talk about layout and how it guides readers through the thing, through the entire magazine, and towards understanding that science can be helpful and important, and you can become a scientist, right? So we can talk about the structure, layout, and sort of visual features. So maybe that's one thing. We can talk about visual layout plus features to reinforce, right? Okay, to reinforce her personality and the benefit of maybe science, and then she relates that to science, right? Science is fun and useful, right? And you can talk about specific sort of like the interplay between that personality of hers and the way she connects it to science. So you can refer to these pull quotes, the hyperbolic language, the conversational tone, right? The oops, maybe let's see what else we have. We have nickname, right? What science is, and we can talk about sort of the things that are not mentioned and that maybe reduce our overall message that science is good, that to promote science. So fun, useful, accessible, and we can say so this would be mostly about the hyperbolic language, tone of voice, right? That sort of makes science seem like it's the key factor here. The exclamation marks, right? Pull quotes. We can talk about the gestures. Yeah, so there's a lot of we can talk about this idea of experimentation, right? She makes experimentation part of her uh story and how science seems worth it. But then we can also talk about the cliches that maybe do not support her argument. Colors, this could be part of our first one or our third one, right? So at the end, what we should be doing is we have three clear separate sections, and let's allocate these annotations to these three ideas. So what I want you guys to do is then go, one, two. This one's maybe two as well. This one's three, right? Uh, so essentially, when you go ahead and write your answers, you have clear idea of what to choose for your textual evidence and what to analyze. And of course, you don't need to go into so much depth as we did, but this does help when you go into your essays. And this is everything you need for your introduction. Keep it short and sweet, and ensure you have all of these points. Thank you guys. Do drop a like and subscribe if this helped. Uh, and hopefully this gave you a few, unique ideas or ways to analyze. Okay.